and welcome to the Enchantress Society with Tia Johnson, a place where you get to be you, where you get to unlock your magic in a sacred and judgment-free zone. The Enchantress Society is your witchy sisterhood of enchanting women who guides and supports you along your spiritual journey from the mundane to the magical. I invite you to sit for a spell as I interview guests and spill the spiritual tea on how we can create the magical life we deserve. Hello, Enchantresses. I have a very special guest today who I cannot wait to introduce you to for today's topic, Spellbinding Tarot with Tess. Tess Traynor is the owner of Spellbinding, which she created to bring quality, intentional products at an affordable price so they are accessible to everyone. The products are handcrafted in Arizona. Her main goal is helping others feel empowered through ritual work and practices. Outside of making magic, Tess is a professional tarot reader and loves the healing it provides for others. And I'm going to include Tess's information in the description of this episode. So Tess, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And as I was saying, just before I can't talk, these brackets, just before we recorded, I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about tarot because I know pretty much the surface level things about tarot, but not too deep. So I just want to first begin with what attracted you to tarot and what do you feel like is your deep connection with tarot?
I get this question a lot, with just people that I read for in general, but I don't know if there was one specific thing that drew me to tarot. I felt lost and I was looking for answers, and tarot was just something that I was drawn to, and I picked up the cards, and the more I used them, I realized how well they worked and how precise it actually was. So I just kept using them, and I never felt drawn to anything else. Like, I know people do the runes and different things like that. It was always just tarot for me, and the more I've read for other people, it's always been accurate, and I've just stuck with it.
Oh, that's amazing. So it sounds like it was just a calling. Well, I don't want to say just, but that's just my little slang. But it seems like it was a calling for you. And it's interesting because when I think about my journey, when I talk to other people, it's like so many things came at us at once. Like, I want to learn this, I want to learn that. And I think it's refreshing. It's really nice to hear that you're just like, tarot for me, and you went forth and started learning about it and really working on your craft.
Yeah, that's something I tell people all the time because it is so overwhelming when you read books or take classes or just see other people who are doing so many different things and they know about, how to do everything, it seems like, and you feel like you don't know enough. You feel like you're not doing enough. But for me, it was like I read books and I was like, well, I need to know how to, read auras or know everything about crystals. And I think it's okay to know some things about everything, but you don't have to be an expert in everything.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when going back to the calling is not your calling, when you try to force it, because especially now where it's just so much more information available and images too, where people see people, as you were saying, using runes, and then, you involve crystals and all these other things, which are great to use, but maybe that's not for you. Maybe it's, for you to master this one craft in this lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's like some shame followed by it because it's like, oh, well, you can't call yourself spiritual. You can't call yourself a witch if you don't know how to do this, if you don't meditate every day. if you don't have a practice every day. And I don't think that's the healthiest thing. Everyone has their own method for doing what they do.
Absolutely, which leads me to my next question about uh, being afraid and the stigma around tarot reading, because along this journey, it is a bit scary at times. Like, should I go down this path? It's mysterious. I don't know where it's going to lead. And that causes people to listen to others who may gatekeep, as opposed to saying, okay, what are you being drawn towards learning? What are some of your likes? What do you feel within? And when that tends to happen, people feel like they aren't witchy enough because, as you were saying, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But no, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. It's a lot of stigma behind it sometimes. So did you feel any kind of nervousness, being afraid, any of those narratives come to mind between you or your clients?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I first started reading like professionally for other people, I was so nervous because I felt like someone was going to call me out and be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Like I just was so afraid, even though I've been doing it a long time and I knew what I was talking about. It was just such a, I guess, imposter syndrome and such a fear of like, oh my God, someone's going to like tell me that I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, God.
also, yeah, there's a lot of rituals that like I think older generations do with tarot. Like you have to flip the card 3 times. You have to have the other person hold it. You have to, do certain things before reading. And I don't necessarily do all those things or
Right.
maybe shuffle it the way other people would. And so I get questions about that sometimes, but for me, it's just with the person sitting across from me, that's an energy exchange, and that's all I need. I don't need to, shuffle the cards a certain way for it to really make a difference.
Right. I love that you said that. I love that you said that and talked about imposter syndrome, because and maybe this is the Virgo in me, but I can't stand when people shuffle their deck the way they do playing cards and it gets bent. I'm just like, no, don't shuffle it that way. You're going to bend the cards. It's going to look horrible. But yeah, other than that, yeah, the knocking 3 times, everyone has their method. And again, it goes back to that calling and listening to yourself. It's easy to fall, I don't want to say trap, but to feel like you need to fall in line with what someone else is doing because that's their method. And to your point, it is a generational thing too, of the, like, I like to hold my cards to my chest. I like to put a crystal on top of it. Someone may just throw their cards in the bag and they're good. So yeah, I love the pathways of more than one. And with imposter syndrome, I feel like that never fully goes away. It just gets smaller over time. Even when I'm working on something, I'm just like, oh man, here we go. They're going to think I'm crazy now. They thought I was crazy before. They're going to think I'm crazy now. So when people come to you for the guidance, the clarity, what are some of the things, the common things that you had to debunk with them to help them be receptive of the messages that you give them?
The main thing that I have to debunk is like, I'm not going to tell you your future, because that's not what tarot really is. It's not telling someone, oh, in 2 months, you're going to find the love of your life, and his name's going to be this, it's telling someone what they already know, but they aren't recognizing or they don't want to acknowledge. And then like, this is the path that most likely will happen if you don't acknowledge this or you continue on this way. But that doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen, because me just giving you this reading can change what you decide to do. And nothing's actually written in stone, so everything can change.
Ah, that is so beautiful. And I know there are listeners who are just starting out who have that imposter syndrome, who are thinking, oh man, what if this doesn't come true? And you hit the nail on the head. It's free will. This, based on everything right now, this is what the cards are saying are a possibility. But someone can just say, oh, screw it, I'm going to move to Hawaii. It's like, well, okay, well, that changes everything now. So, keep an open mind too. People listening, is that there's so many, going back to the pathways, there's so many things that can happen. And I think a great thing to do is to stress to people, based on all current factors, this is what the cards is showing me.
Right. Like, so when people come to me and they're like, oh, I don't want to know my future, I'm like, but it's not your future. And I'm not telling you your future. I'm telling you the most likely outcome, but you can always change that because your decisions change that. That's why if you get a tarot reading, like more than, like, I say every 2 months or something is good, because if you keep going back like once a week, it's not really going to change.
Right, right. So what are some best practices for, let's say, people who want to be a tarot reader and those who are looking for a reading? Because it sounds like the one client was limiting themselves as they were looking for assistance. It's like, okay, I don't want to know my future, but tell me this. It's like, well, you got to clear your mind first. That's not what this is about.
Yeah, I would say for people wanting a reading, just being open to it, like not necessarily expecting anything, and just being open to a reading or whatever comes up. And if there is something you want to know, kind of know specifically what you're looking for or what question you have, because there are more specific readings that people can do. Like usually I have multiple different 3-card readings that I offer. So if someone has a more specific question or situation, I can do a different type of reading, and that will help them more than just a general like past, present, future.
Mm-hmm.
But like for someone getting into tarot reading, I would say it's just about practice. Like the more you practice, the more you read for yourself, and the more that you feel like you know what the cards mean. And like, yeah, reading books is great, and even taking online courses so you feel more confident about what the cards mean. It's like the practice, and then when you start doing it for other people, the confidence. So the more you do it for other people, the more you're accurate about it, the more confidence you get. And then the more confidence you have, the better you are.
I like that. Yeah, getting used to it. And, every time you look at a card, it's going to speak to you differently. You may be drawn to the numbers one time. You may be drawn to what's going on in the background. So I love that, practice and getting the confidence, because I remember when I started off with Oracle cards, and I would be nervous because I would think, okay, how can I relay this message even when it doesn't make sense? Or if I'm being drawn to a number, I'm thinking, I don't know why, like it's an entire card, but I'm being called to a number. So yeah, with that practice, it helps to ease the tension, ease your nervous system, and yeah, be more receptive to messages. So what's your favorite spread?
I do the Celtic Cross one a lot, or
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, because it's a good for like an in-depth reading, but it's also specific to a situation. So if someone's like, oh, I feel stuck, or there's a situation happening, it's a really good spread to do because it covers a lot of areas. But otherwise, like a 3-card reading, and there's lots of different 3-card readings I do, like past, present, future, or another favorite is like release, begin, sustain. So if you know like what you need to let go of, what you should keep doing, and then what you should start doing.
I like that one. Yeah, that sounds like a quick insight when someone just like, I just need to know. I need to know. I love the Celtic spread because like you said, it's so in depth, but every time I just get amazed. Like every single time I'm just thinking, wow, 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 wow. Like that's just what I have for that spread. It's really amazing.
Yeah, that's a really good one to do. And like to go back to people starting out or like reading for other people is like I wouldn't get too caught up in the quote unquote rules of tarot cards
Hmm.
and what they're supposed to mean because sometimes when I'm doing readings for other people, I read cards in a way that's necessarily like they don't mean that, but the way it's showing up in the spread and just the
Hmm.
energy I'm getting from the person, I'll read it in a completely different way. And that's okay. Like if you trust yourself enough to read energy or interpret things that way, you don't have to have a rigid understanding of tarot. Like they can mean different things to you, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah, that was very helpful because yeah, it's easy to think you have to go right to the book and read the message, or maybe it's wrong. The card must be wrong because it means this. And I think that maybe people should have a tarot journal and maybe document certain things. Do you have a ritual that you do before you read? Do you track certain things with yourself when you're doing tarot?
Usually I like to kind of meditate a little bit before, or like in the morning if I'm going to be doing it all day. And then I always spray the deck with like a cleansing spray. So in between each client, it'll be cleansed. Like that's how I cleanse my cards.
Mhm.
And that's basically my ritual. And I like to talk to people when they first sit down. I don't have them hold the deck, but I always talk to them. So like while I'm shuffling, I'll be talking to them.
Nice, nice. And you make sprays, right? Because I remember looking at on your Instagram, you have a rich witch spray.
Yeah, I make intentional sprays and ritual candles
Hmm.
and ritual kits. So I make all different stuff like that, and it all has like every product has a specific intention behind it. Like the Rich Witch spray is obviously for money manifestation, and so like everything that goes into that product, then I research, and so like the crystals, the oils, is all specifically for abundance and money manifestation.
Awesome. So people can buy your spray, spray themselves, spray the cards, and do a 3 card spread or the Celtic Cross spread for uh money, prosperity. That sounds like a really cool ritual to me.
Yeah, they definitely can do that. Like those are the sprays I use every time with my cards.
I like that. So, if someone wanted to, say, host a tarot party or maybe a ritual with a couple of people, maybe 3 people, what were some tips you would give them to just like kickstart their tarot business?
Um, I would say don't be afraid to try new things. So like reach out to people or places you might not think would be interested in it. And the worst that could happen is they tell you no, like that's
Hmm.
not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, okay, they weren't interested, move on to something else. And like I said, confidence is the most important thing,
Hmm.
and not appearing like you are unsure. So if you're inviting people over to like teach them or just to give readings, even if you aren't totally confident, if it's your first time doing it, don't appear that way. Like appear like you
Hmm.
know what you're doing. Even if you feel like most of the stuff coming out of your mouth is not accurate. I think
Yeah.
you'll be surprised at how accurate it actually is. I mean, I've given readings before where I've, gave the whole reading and then I'm like, oh God, that was horrible. And then the person across from me is like, oh my God, that was so accurate. So it's mostly just your self-doubt that makes you think
Yeah.
that.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think also too, when people see people's facial expressions, they get nervous, but sometimes you can't tell. And I say this so often because I know us Virgos get called out. I'm a Virgo. I never realized how my face looked when I was listening to someone intensely. So they would think that I would just hate their speech, not like it. They're looking at me like, okay. So I'm just like, no, I loved it. Like it was great too. So, keep in mind that too. You can't just solely go by expressions when you are saying, your crazy things like, I see your red, blue robin or something like that. It makes no sense to me. And someone's like, oh my gosh, yeah, they used to come, to my grandmother's house all the time. She lived by the wooded area or something like that. So I just wanted to say that about facial expressions.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. And I would say be prepared for people to like break down crying because it happens a lot. And to just have to have you have to have a lot of empathy to read for strangers because they will tell you their deepest feelings or secrets because they feel like they can open up to you, especially if you're really accurate with the reading.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I have people tell me very personal things and you just have to be understanding and open to it and, not judgmental in any way. Like you don't have to necessarily give them therapy, but just be understanding.
Mm-hmm. Holding that space for them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up because yeah, I do find myself being very selective with like people who I go to for readings. Or people who like I just maybe have heard about like, oh, okay, I'll check them out and things like that. And you do end up trusting these people, the person who you go to, and you realize that safe, like you were saying, non-judgmental space, and yeah, the emotions start flowing, and sometimes it is, oh, what can I do? I'm not a therapist. But what I realize is just holding that space, like you were saying, just, being there, let them cry. I think is just a beautiful thing because people who a lot of times go to readings, they don't have that space. And it's just that they're so involved. They had to do so many things and society just doesn't give them that space. So it's really a blessing when magic like that happens.
Yeah, it's very interesting because a lot of times people look to me like, well, what do I do? Like, give me the answer. And I'm like, I don't have, this is what it's saying, and this is what you should most likely do to really change the outcome. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can't do that. I can't tell you what to do. So it's just like being there and listening and offering some advice, but you shouldn't tell someone what to do. Like, yes, you're giving them a reading, but you shouldn't tell them, oh yeah, you definitely need to break up with this person or, do something drastic with your life because ultimately that's up to them.
Right. And worst case scenario, they circle back and make you liable. Well, you encouraged me at the time I was vulnerable. It's like, that's really not how it went down at all. We broke through a barrier and I agreed with, what you should do. Like, yeah, you should break up with that man. He's toxic. Or yeah, you should strategically leave your job. I'm not saying in a drop of a dime, but save up money. Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes people will try to say, well, my life is in shambles. And I don't want to say that's the point, but you go through periods of what I call the underworld. You go through this like, oh, I lost friends and, this didn't work out because you're being rerouted. And sometimes people don't realize that. It made me I just got an image of when I used to take acne medicine, and I had this 3-step program, and I purchased the whole kit and caboodle. And then the lady goes, "Oh, by the way," of course, after I made the purchase, "it's going to make your bumps come out more to cleanse. Don't worry." And it's like that. It's some things look like it's crazy and it feels bad. And it's just like, what's going on here? It's being uprooted so it can just get out of your way and you can reroute your life based on the set of information you were given in a reading.
Right. And it's like sometimes I tell people things that they don't necessarily want to hear, but not like in a, you're like, someone's going to die or you're going to die, or like, you know, not in a final way, just in a, you aren't acknowledging this and you know you need to acknowledge it. And that's why you feel all these feelings and you feel so stuck. And that's what's really hard for a lot of people. And some people will get mad and they'll be like, well, you know, you're just not accurate, or I can't acknowledge that, or I don't know what you're talking about, because they aren't ready to acknowledge it. And that's okay. And then you'll have some people that are very aggressive. And I would say with those people, you just say, this isn't working, and like give them a refund, because it's not worth the energy to fight about it.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I was going to ask you how you handle difficult clients.
I haven't had that many, like, luckily. And I will say, like, I do a lot of readings at like different markets. So just on the street, just people walking up, you know, and a lot of times people are like, I don't believe in this, but I'll just, whatever, sit down. And most of the time people walk away like, oh my God, that was super accurate. I have had one person that was like, this doesn't apply to me at all. And she just kind of got up and left. And then I had one reading online where the girl was like, this isn't what you said it was. And just very like, why did I pay for this? This isn't what you said it was going to be. And I'm like, okay, I can do a different reading. This is the reading you said you wanted, because it was like a specific 3-card reading, and I don't think she asked for the right one. And she just kept going back and forth. So when it comes to that, like going back and forth, I usually just am like, okay, here's your refund, and then end it, because it's too back and forth, and there's no point to continue trying, you know? Right.
Yeah. And also, when people say that this doesn't apply, sometimes it happens later. I remember just even as a kid, when I would get visions or premonition dreams, it would happen years. Okay, like sometimes 5 years, sometimes 10 years later. I'm not saying this is going to be the case for everyone, but sometimes it just hasn't happened. And I talk about this one reading that I gave. This was a few years ago at this point. And the person came back to me a year later, and she just said, well, why did it take 2 years for that to happen? And she had got a reading from someone else, and he told her the same thing. And I said, because it took you 2 years to do what you needed to do to get that result. And that's the thing too. I want to stress to people who are, interested in, tarot, even if you're just doing it for yourself and you don't want to become an entrepreneur, maybe you want to read for your friends, keep in mind that time isn't this thing that we can control, that we can say, yes, this is going to happen. Boom, right here with what I'm looking to do. I wish that was the case, because I would be a billionaire right now. Believe me. I could just will it, boom, done. But the thing is, there are always steps we need to take for certain things to happen. We want to bring something into our life. We have to change our mind, shift our mind. We have to get out there and do things. And sometimes people don't do the things that they're supposed to do, and they turn around and put it on the ethical tarot reader like it's their fault. So, I just wanted to stress that give it some time when people do that, or just like what Tess said, just give them the refund because it's not worth the energy.
Yeah, and I would say the hardest thing to read is like future, because if you do a reading and you like do something for future, someone's always going to be like, well, when's that going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to put a timetable on something.
Yes.
Because you don't know when it's going to happen. And I'm sure some readers say that they do know, like, and give very accurate or very
Mm-hmm.
precise timetables. I am not one of those people that feels comfortable doing that. So I will
Mm-hmm.
usually tell people it could be a couple months to a year.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know and what to tell you about when it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree. No, you go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say I agree.
yeah, that's just what I would tell people starting out. Like, if they have people ask those questions about when it's going to happen, it's okay to like say you don't know and give like a broad timetable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. That's one of the reasons why in the very beginning of my podcast, I stopped with the time. And I don't remember if I did a full episode on it, but I said, because what I realized was that with me, well, even with myself, I don't keep up with time. Okay. So just spirituality aside, okay. I'm a night owl. I don't care for the daytime. Like I'm not there with time as it is. So spiritually speaking, the last time I did this, spring came up. And then I heard, no, it could be her springtime. So the woman wanted to know when something was going to happen. And sometimes I would hear a number 6. It could be 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, depend on it, how proactive you are in your life. But then I heard, when I was hearing spring, it could be actual spring. It could be her personal spring. You know, sometimes we're in our winter months where we need to go inward and, you know, really do a lot of personal inner work. And then we bust out our spring and we're ready to go. And sometimes when people try to make time work for them and take control of that, they miss out on so many things. And it's best to remember things happen in divine timing. And I had to learn that. It's not easy. I'm not saying this as a oh, you know, divine timing. No, it's like it's divine timing. I don't know how else to explain it to you. It's not when we want it. It's divine timing.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think like the timing isn't as important. Like, if you tell someone, oh, you know, it's going to happen in a month, then all they're going to focus on is, oh, in a month, everything's going to be great. When in reality, it's like, no, you should focus on that being your goal, but you have to achieve that goal still. Like, me doing this reading and telling you this is going to be your future doesn't automatically, magically make it happen. You have to put in that work to make it your future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you got
what?
I said you could go ahead. I thought you were still talking.
Oh no, I just like, I think when you put a timetable on it, you kind of let people relax a little bit because they feel like it's for sure going to happen.
Right. And I think if they continue to look at it more as like advice, guidance, then it's the law of least resistance. They can just be more proactive and go more with the flow and not be so obsessed with that. Because as we learn, when you obsess and try to chase after something, you don't get it. But then when you relax, it comes to you, which is a crazy thing. You think if you go after something, like I'll get it, but it has these fine lines. Like, yeah, you should go after it, but there's also that path of least resistance as well. So if you're going to the cards just to say, when is this going to happen and what's the outcome, you're going to miss so much. And as you were saying earlier, that's not the purpose of the cards.
Yeah, exactly.
And when people, let's say they want to pull cards for themselves on a regular basis, should they focus on a theme? Like, I know there's more than one way to look at it, But from your experience, if someone wanted to just pull a card a day, should it just be like a general, oh, I'm looking for a message for the day, a theme for the day, what to focus on for a day? What are some of like the simple tips you can give people who are just brand new and they want to just start with tarot for themselves?
Yeah, it's good to like, I mean, some people say you should sleep with your deck under your pillow and everything. I never did that, but if that's something you want to do to feel more connected, that's always an option. But I think just pulling a card a day to see like how the day is going to go or what you're feeling that day is a good thing to do to really familiarize yourself with each card. And it also will help you understand a little bit better, like what each card means if you can relate it back to your life. There's another thing you can do if you want to kind of study each card, and it's every day take one card from the deck. So like first you would start with the Fool and then go down the deck and just for like 20 minutes stare at it and meditate. And then throughout the day, after the day's over, write down like what you realized happened that was in that energy of that card.
Yeah, I like that. And it's easy enough for people to not be overwhelmed with the process of learning tarot.
Right, because there's so many different ways to learn it. And like I said, you don't have to have such a structured understanding. Like it's good to know the general meanings of each card, but the more you read, the more it'll just flow and you'll be able to kind of put your own meaning on the card as well.
Right, right. And when people come to you for readings, what are some of the questions that you wish they would ask? Like, what are some juicy questions that people can ask a reader that really provides like good insight if someone wants to learn about their relationships or life in general? I think about this often because questions that we ask are so important. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can ask a question that would really encompass what the reader is asking for. Because I feel like sometimes people don't know how to ask a question or a question that they should be asking.
Yeah, I agree that a lot of times people don't know how to ask the question. So when someone sits down, I usually like ask them first, have they ever had a reading before? And then go from there and what type of reading would they like? And then walk them through all the different types of readings. And if there's something that they're kind of wondering about, which reading would be the best or what reading I could do for them. So just kind of, if you talk to them that way and get a feeling for where they're at and what they're really wondering about, I think that's the best option. But you do have people who just sit down and they're like, this is the reading I want. And they might not be asking for the right reading, but you know, they're like, this is the one I want. I would say like the best reading to do probably is like the Celtic Cross, like we talked about, because it's in depth. But another reading that's good, like if you're looking for, if there's like, oh, I don't know which decision to make, or I feel like, you know, I have two choices, is the Fork in the Road spread. Do you know that one?
No, I don't know that one.
So it's basically like there's one card at the top, and that's like you. And then there's two cards on the right, and that's the first decision and the outcome. And then two cards on the left, and same thing, the second option, and then outcome of that. So you can kind of tell them like, okay, this is your first option and your second option, and this is most likely the outcome of that and most likely the outcome of the other one. And that's very helpful, I found, for people who aren't sure what the right path is.
Nice. Yeah, that is amazing. I'm going to look that up and use that for myself. I like that. Yeah. And I also asked that too, because when people are given the reading and a person hadn't really thought of their question, or maybe they say, oh, just a general message, and something other than what they asked for pops up, that can be really unnerving, because it's just like, okay, I know they asked about relationships, but something about their childhood, is coming up, or, there's something else completely different. And it's just like, oh my God, what do I do? Because it's not about relationships. Sometimes it's what needs to come through, not necessarily what you want to come through.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, especially with 3 cards pulls, like, you can do them for past, present, and future or something. And since it's only 3 cards, the person might be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. And it's totally fine to pull more cards or to pull clarifying cards and be like, well, this card goes into that one, so it actually means this, or you're getting more information about the past, present, future. And that usually, if it ever happens where someone is like, this doesn't make sense, that usually clears it up and makes it make sense.
Mm-hmm. And, it's so funny that you said clarity, because as we were talking briefly before I recorded, I pulled the clarity card. I pulled just 4 oracle cards. Clarity, talent, home, and dreams popped up. So I just been feeling throughout this whole, talk, is that I feel like it's like a coming of home, like understanding tarot is understanding ancient ways, and people are developing their talents in this, and you are helping them in this process. And it's like, this is going to be a dream for some people, like you with your business. I know this is your dream, and so I wanted to ask you, so I know that you have your sprays and you make candles as well. Is there other things that we can expect from spellbinding?
Well, I do all that with the products, and then I also do readings. I offer them through Zoom online as well. Mm-hmm. So if people, want a reading face to face and they don't live in Arizona, that's an option. I also, like, the end of this year, I'm planning on doing a few retreats and courses in regards to tarot, and like workshops with tarot. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, that sounds exciting. And I love Arizona. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So any final, it's 4:44 right now. This is hilarious. I just looked at the clock. So any final words?
I just would say, for people who are interested in reading tarot, don't be afraid of it. Just start reading and, have practice. It's okay to read a few books about it, and then just trust yourself. It's really about intuition and trusting yourself to read the cards.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Tess. This was so insightful. And I know everyone got a lot of value from this. And actually, there is one last question I want to ask you. What is in your opinion, a good starter tarot deck?
I would say the Rider-Waite deck, because it's considered the original deck, and it's a good one just to learn the symbolism. But awesome. Also, one of my first decks was the Wild Unknown deck, so that one's good too.
Nice. Now I have no more questions. Well, okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm rooting for you. I'm sending you so much love, so many blessings. Remember to be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, Magical One. Let's keep in touch. Join the VIP email list by going to tiamariejohnson.com. And as always, I'm sending you lots of love, many blessings. I'm rooting for you. And remember to be kind to yourself. Until next time.